Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gartner Digital Markets webinar on lead scoring. I quickly want to introduce myself. I'm Jade Thomas, a marketing specialist on our vendor marketing team. We're going to wait just a couple more minutes for people to join, and then we'll get started. Okay, we waited a couple minutes, so let's go ahead and get started. Today we are learning about Lead Scoring 101, how to prioritize sales-ready leads. Our presenters today are Vivian Lorencatto and Brian Thompson, who work closely consulting our vendors here at Gartner Digital Markets on marketing and sales best practices. Vivian, do you want to start?
Sure. Thanks, Jade. Hi, everyone. My name is Vivian Lorencatto, and I'm an account manager with the Gartner Digital Markets Client Success Team. I currently support over 300 vendors across a handful of industries, helping them optimize their lead generation campaigns with Capterra, GetApp, and Software Advice.
Cool. And my name is Brian Thompson. I'm a senior business development executive here at Gartner Digital Markets and focus and manage a dozen or so of our strategic accounts.
All right, so quick look at the agenda for today's presentation. We'll be starting off with a high-level overview of what lead scoring is and the type of data you should consider when formulating a lead scoring strategy. And then Brian will walk us through how to actually calculate a lead score and how to make sure your marketing team and sales teams are aligned and in agreement with how to best score your inbound leads. And then we'll wrap up today's conversation with some general best practices and a Q&A session. So on that, we want to make sure we're addressing all topics today. So please submit any questions you may have throughout the presentation, and they will be answered at the end. And we also want to note that we'll be sending the recording and slides tomorrow, so you'll have that to reference to share with your teams as well. And with that, let's get started. So for those who may be new to lead scoring or not super familiar with the term, here's a helpful definition. So according to Eloqua, lead scoring is the practice of using an algorithm to assign a ranking to sales prospects based on an understanding of the prospect's interests and buying intentions. In other words, it's the practice of scoring your prospects to help your sales team get to the right leads more efficiently and effectively. And here at Gartner Digital Markets, we actively apply scores to our inbound leads based on their activity and engagement with our websites and marketing campaigns. And so the main goal is to have an efficient way to determine how interested a prospect is in your product or service And basically, the higher the score, the closer that lead is to becoming a sale. And in order to make all of the above happen effectively, we highly, highly recommend using a lead scoring software or a marketing automation system. It'd be pretty difficult to implement manually, but we'll discuss more about that later. But before even talking about how to actually implement lead scoring, it's important to keep in mind that not every company needs to have a lead scoring system in place just yet. In fact, we recommend asking yourself these 3 important questions before even pursuing further. So number 1, do you have enough incoming leads to even warrant a scoring system in the first place? What does the bandwidth currently look like for your team? 2, does your sales team have an efficient sales follow-up process in place to follow up with the leads? The effort of scoring inbound leads will only truly be beneficial if your team is equipped to target those 8+ leads correctly. And I know that our client success team here have noticed a direct correlation between follow-up time, ideally calling prospects within 5 minutes, and opportunity rate. So that's certainly a key aspect. And 3, do you have enough data on your target market to implement lead scoring? So to be able to score your leads effectively, it's critical to know the ins and outs of your buyer personas or customer profiles. In specific, it's important to determine or to define the fit and the activity criteria you're looking for in your prospects. So beginning with fit. This refers to tangible qualities that you know about the prospect. Examples of a fit criteria include like demographic information, location and title, also company information like number of employees, industry vertical, B2B versus B2C, etc. Being able to define your ideal fit is extremely important, not only for lead scoring, but also for your lead gen campaigns in general. Using messaging that highlights your ideal fit will help you attract the right prospects into your sales funnel. And the second piece of data to define is activity. So this refers to how engaged a prospect is with your product or service. And this is what will ultimately indicate where they are in your sales cycle. So examples of activity criteria you should be actively measuring and monitoring are 1, online behavior. So this includes page views, downloads, lead submissions, webinar attendance. So how often is a prospect interacting with your online collateral? Second one to look at is email engagement. So are your prospects opening your emails? How often are they clicking on your call to action, etc. And this engagement score, again, could also be beneficial with identifying areas for improvement with your email marketing. 3, social engagement. Social media is a great way to keep your brand top of mind beyond your website and email marketing. So how often are your prospects clicking on your social media links, sharing your content, or commenting on your posts? And finally, spam detection. While the above criteria would mainly apply a positive score to your prospects or your lead score for a lead, spam detection would apply a negative score and mark the lead as lower priority. So for example, if the info they're submitting is bogus or incomplete, or if they're not using their business email address, I know that's important for some companies and some industries, you could apply a negative score so that your team can get to the priority leads more efficiently. And so once you have a solid understanding of your target buyer persona's fit and activity, then you're in a good place to start looking at implementing a lead scoring system. So with that, Brian will walk you through the steps of putting it in practice.
Great, thank you, Vivian. Let's jump right into calculating your lead score. One item important to note, lead scoring is unique to company and software system. In this next section, we're going to give you the basics while walking through 2 common lead scoring calculation approaches. The first step here is to audit all of your marketing materials. I'd recommend creating an Excel or Google Sheets file and list all of the behaviors for which you'll want to have scores. Remember, this can be both negative or positive. This marketing audit should encompass all campaigns that you currently have running or aim to have running in the future. Take a look at the example on this slide. It's an audit of Capterra's marketing materials. Step 2, choose your sales ready scores. In our first approach, there are 2 metrics that you will want to look at: sales ready score and percentage of sales readiness. Your sales ready score is the final score used to determine when a prospect is ready to be handed over to sales. Best practices suggest starting at 100 since it makes it easier for calculations. In the next step, you'll determine your percentage of sales readiness for each piece of data you've listed out in your marketing materials audit. To help determine percentage of sales readiness, you'll want to look at both your close rate data and make sure you're consulting your sales team regularly. It's important to have attribution data for each of your marketing materials, websites, landing pages, etc. As an example, if a prospect were to read a particular white paper, look at the close rate data and talk with your sales rep to determine the percentage this offer turns a prospect into a customer. If that white paper means they are 15% sales ready, then you would multiply that 15% by your sales ready score. Again, best practice suggests starting at 100, so that means the white paper score is 15. This would add until they hit your sales ready score, and in some cases will continue after. Another common method is using a combination of grade, such as A through D, and score, such as 1 through infinity, to create a master lead score. It follows the same methodology we discussed a moment ago, but splits your buyer persona away from the prospect's engagement. To calculate the grade, assign different weightings to your key demographic and company information. High value info should be weighted higher. For example, if your software targets certain geos, industries, employee size, etc., apply a higher weight to those prospects. To calculate score, simply apply certain point amounts to key activity, such as email engagement, form submissions, and page views. Bonus points if you're able to apply higher scores to higher value pages. As an example, here at Capterra, if a prospect were to submit a free estimate form, they'd actually receive a higher score than a prospect submitting a free website review form. Now your sales team can use the combination of grade and score to prioritize their follow-up and outreach. For example, if a prospect comes through that has an A grade and a 300-point score, they should definitely be prioritized over one with a C grade and a 500-point score. Regardless, for both approaches, make sure you set up an automation rule for when a prospect has hit your sales ready score. That way, the sales team is able to reach out either via phone or email, and preferably within the 5-minute time frame we mentioned before. Step 3 is to test it out. Now that you have a score for each asset listed in your shared file, it's time to put it into action with your marketing automation software. Please keep in mind this is a living score and is expected to change throughout time. Like anything in marketing, make sure you test it out and continue to make tweaks over time for a more accurate measurement. The next section is aligning marketing and sales. Aligning your sales team and customer data and analytics reports is the best way to piece together which content is most valuable for converting leads into customers. This alignment will influence your lead scores while giving you the ability to tweak them over time to become more accurate. In fact, we recommend that sales and marketing work closely throughout the entire process. Here at Capterra, our sales and marketing teams have a standing monthly meeting to ensure that we are always on the same page. At the end of the day, both your sales and marketing teams are concerned with converting qualified prospects into customers. So it truly does involve a joint effort. Now our best practices, we'll run through these quickly. First, ensure your team is actually in need of a lead scoring system. Second, build out your buyer personas or customer profiles. Third, determine all score fits and activity. Fourth, audit and list all of your current marketing assets as well as any future assets. Fifth, pull your attribution close rate data and work with sales to determine the score or rank for each. And finally, sixth, test it out and continue to make tweaks.
Great. Thanks, Brian. So we're going to quickly get started in our Q&A section. Vivian, Brian, and I will answer as many questions we can in the next few minutes. So feel free to submit a question through the GoToWebinar question box or through the chat box. We'll take a couple minutes for you guys if you have any questions. All right, so we do have one question. So which marketing automation software should I use?
Great question. So if you're looking for a good market automation software system, a great place to start is with any of the Gartner digital market websites. We have a marketing automation directory available on Capterra, GetApp, and Software Advice. So if you're looking to do more of your own independent research, read some verified user reviews, I think Capterra and GetApp would be a good place to start. But if you would find it beneficial to have a conversation or more of a consultation, then I think chatting with our Software Advice team would be your best bet. They have a great buyer advisor team that can walk you through the different options out there and provide you with a short list of ones to consider.
Great. So we have one question that came in. How often do we assume leads touch multiple aspects of your lead scoring system? What if a lead tends to only touch one of your scoring items? So that's a good question. That's kind of one thing that we do here is if someone has come through with one form, and I'm Jade from the marketing team as a reminder, if someone has come through only once in one touch point, we would recommend putting them in some type of nurture track. So putting them in like an email campaign or some type of newsletter that gets them a little bit more interested in your product. Sometimes it's also could be something where you retarget them on Facebook or any other type of social media to kind of see if they also continue to have interest in learning more information about whether you have any educational content pieces or about who you are. And that way, having them in that nurture process allows them to interact with you guys even more. So that allows them to add more score. If they're opening it, if they're continuing to stay engaged, they'll build up more points and eventually become sales ready. If they're not after that nurture program, it is kind of safe to assume that they may have found another product at this point. They might have bought, from a competitor or have decided to go a different route entirely. So they also might not be the best fit to begin with. But putting them into a lead nurturing program is usually a safe way to start if someone hasn't hit that score or maybe they've only interacted with one part.
And speaking from working with a handful of vendors who are generating leads through Gartner digital markets, when opportunity rate is low from the inbound leads that they're getting, definitely encouraging nurture tracks tends to be a great solve. So highly recommend that.
Okay. Another question. Okay, so what are the various benefits or cons of using the grade score method versus the sales ready percentage method? So we found that it really depends on the marketing automation system that you have in place and what they cater to. So one thing that we've used a couple of different marketing automation systems here, and then we also Viv has worked with plenty of clients who use a ton of different marketing automation systems. And so they all kind of work a little bit differently. My biggest recommendation is to either talk to a rep that you have with your marketing automation system. If you don't have one, look at their help section. They typically have something in terms of helping you score your leads. To kind of build on that, whatever works best with that system is most likely going to work with one of those two approaches, and make sure you do that research beforehand. So then once you start auditing all your materials, you can kind of keep that in mind on how you either want to grade and score it or how you want to do that sales ready percentage. But it is something where we've noticed that all of them are a little bit different. So you definitely want to contact that rep. It's always nice to get someone on the phone and they can usually walk you through that, or just go to their help section if this is something you want to try and figure out on your own. Okay, so the next question is, can you talk a little bit more in depth about the signs you should look at to determine whether to implement lead scoring? So for example, in a small company, would it be better to do a lead nurturing before lead scoring, or do they happen in tandem?
I think the day it's going to be, do you have a large enough lead volume to necessitate a lead scoring solution to begin with, or system to begin with? If your sales team isn't sort of at capacity and are able to take leads at a higher rate, and aren't having problems reaching out to these leads in a timely manner, again, best practice being 5 minutes, I'm not sure there's a real need there. Now, if it's the case where leads are coming in and aren't being reached out to, or your foot isn't in the door within the first 5 minutes, or even the first 24 hours for that matter, I think at that point you definitely need some sort of system in place, whether it's a nurture track or a marketing automation solution to kind of help push those leads through your sales funnel. So it really just depends on your inbound lead flow. Is there enough to necessitate this type of system or not?
And to answer the second part of the question, if the question of does scoring come first or does nurturing come first, I think lead scoring technically should come first, because that's going to identify who you should be nurturing versus those you should be actively pursuing from a sales perspective. So I definitely think both run alongside each other, but lead scoring is definitely what's going to help you identify best where that buyer is in the decision-making process.
Exactly, and I would even kind of say what both of them are saying is that it also depends on how many qualified and unqualified leads you're getting. If you're getting a ton of unqualified leads, then yes, you definitely want to have like a nurturing and scoring process in place to kind of help push them further to qualified leads. If you are having a ton of qualified leads come in, then maybe this isn't like the best time, because you are getting people straight to your sales team and they're ready to buy. So it really is a matter of looking at your sales funnel, and that's why one of the things that's really important is marketing and sales having this conversation from the beginning to kind of figure out where you are and what is needed. So is it more of sales team needs to follow up with leads a little bit more efficiently, and marketing needs to support them in terms of building more collateral? Is it that marketing doesn't have enough content pieces available to help nurture someone in that nurture track? So then maybe marketing needs to go back and build some additional collateral to help nurture some of these leads. It's really looking at both marketing and sales to figure out where you guys both are and where are the gaps, and trying to figure out where you can fill them. Lead scoring usually is towards the end of the process, because it is helpful to have a good sales follow-up. It is helpful to have a good nurture track in place. It's helpful to have good content out there, because that, with all of that stuff in place, it makes lead scoring very easy to kind of put and do efficiently. So someone asked if we are recording it. Yes, we are recording it, and we will send out the slides and the recording, as well as a fun little lead scoring worksheet to all registrants within the next 24 hours. You should most likely will get it in your inbox tomorrow morning. Okay. So how often do we assume leads touch multiple aspects of your lead scoring system? What if a lead tends to only touch one of your lead scoring items? I believe we did cover that one. Okay. Well, if you guys have any additional questions, please reach out to your sales rep or your account manager here at Gartner Digital Markets. We will, like I said, vendor marketing will send out an email with the recording, the slides, and a worksheet. If you want to email us directly, feel free to reply to that email. We can also answer any other questions that you have. Most likely your account manager or your sales representative will also reach out in the next week or so, just to make sure you have all the materials that you need, and just to make sure that we've answered all your questions. Want to thank you again for joining our webinar. Hope you found this information valuable, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.